Hi, I'm Fred Sokolow, and this video lesson is based on my book called Fretboard Roadmaps. It's going to cover generally the same type of material that the book covers, which is to explain to you a bunch of visual fretboard patterns that allow you to play all over the neck of the guitar, whether you're doing lead or rhythm or just jamming. And a lot of players tend to get stuck here at the 5th fret, so we're going to overcome that obstacle and show you ways to play in all different keys and have lots of choices of ways to solo. I'll start by identifying a couple of the notes on the 6th and 5th strings. I'm tuned to A440, by the way, so that's what my E sounds like. And just to be able to name the chords that we're going to use and for communication purposes, you really have to know the notes on the bottom strings, the 6th string and the 5th string. So let's just take a look at those. Of course, you've got an E note here, and as we go up the fretboard, we've got an F at the 1st fret, a G at the 3rd, an A at the 5th fret, and a B at the 7th fret, a C at the 8th fret, a D, and then you start over again at the 12th fret with an E. You can practice those with a chord. This E chord, this first position E chord, that I'm sure you know, has a 6-string root. This is the note that gives the chord its name. So as you probably know, if you put a bar behind that E position, you have an F chord. You have a barred E chord, but at the 1st fret it's F, because that's an F note. This is a G note, so that makes this a G major chord. And up at the 5th fret it's an A, and so on. So you can practice just naming the chords as you walk up, you know, A, B, C, and so on. Similarly, this A chord, this first position A chord, the 5th string is the root of that chord. That's an A note. If you moved it up 1 fret, if you put a bar behind it, that A position, moved it up 1 fret, you'd have an A sharp or a B flat. I play it like this usually, but people have all different ways of doing that. That's a movable barred A chord. So here it's a B flat, here it's a B. C is at the 5th fret, and we're walking up and naming the notes on the 5th string again. There's a D, so that makes this a D major chord. Here's an E at the 7th fret, so that's an E chord, and so on. The 8th fret is F, 10th fret is G, and it starts over again at A. So before we go on, it'd be real good for you to stop and make sure you know what the notes are on the 5th and 6th strings. You've probably noticed from playing any kind of music, whether it's rock, country, blues, or whatever, that whatever key you're in, there are certain chords that you expect to find in that key. We're going to talk about chord families now. The 1-4-5 chord family is the one that we're going to talk about. Most hundreds and thousands of tunes can be played with just 3 chords. And they're the 1, 4, and 5 chord. Well, the numbers refer to notes in a major scale. Like if you're in the key of C, the first note in the C major scale is C, so any kind of C chord, whether it's C or C7th or whatever, is the 1 chord. The D note is the 2nd note in the C major scale, so any kind of D chord will be a 2 chord. Well, it turns out that 1, 4, and 5 in the C major scale are C, F, and G. You can do the arithmetic and find that out. But you already know that if you've ever played a blues tune or a country tune in the key of C, that C, F, and G are the 3 chords you usually need. The 1, 4, and 5 chord have an interesting relationship here on the fretboard. If you start with this barred E type of chord, I'm at the 5th fret, so I'm playing an A, you've automatically got a 4 chord right under it if you do that barred A type of chord. So if this is your 1 chord, that's your 4 chord. Now that works whatever key you're in. If I was up here in B flat, and that was my 1 chord, then this would be my 4 chord. That's one of the nice things about the guitar, is that it has these movable relationships that are fixed. Wherever I take that picture, it's going to look the same. And it makes it easy to play in lots of different keys. So back to the key of A, there's my 1 chord, the 4 chord's right under it. The 5 chord is always just up 2 frets from the 4 chord. So whatever key you're in, you can automatically find your 1, 4, and 5 and do your Louie Louie check to make sure that you've got it right. Of course, that's not just Louie Louie, it's Twist and Shout, it's La Bamba, and it's about 100 other rock tunes that go like this. a standard chord progression in rock and roll, and like I said, it's just as easy to play anywhere else. For instance, in B flat, same stuff. Now, that allows you to do that 1-4-5 thing just about anywhere on the fretboard. If you started with this type of shape, the 5th string, root major chord as a 1 chord, then you've got a 1-4-5 chord family that goes with that chord too. Automatically, you've got a 5 chord right above it, and that means the 4 chord is going to be 2 frets down. So you've got the same. So if you want to do that 1-4-5 thing, you go 1, 4, 5, 4, and again, that's movable. If I did it up here on the 7th fret, I'm in E. So that means just about for any key, you've got 2 choices of ways to do that. If I'm in G, I can go 1, 4, 5, or I can go 1, 4, 5. A lot of players in rock and roll and in blues and in country abbreviate those barred chords and play these short power chords that I'm going to show you. I hate barred chords, so I can definitely relate to that. Instead of playing this barred E type of chord here, this is an A at the 5th fret, they just play the top 2 or 3, let's just do the top 2 notes, and that's my abbreviated A chord. Sometimes it'll be written in a book as A5. Likewise for the barred A type of chord, this would be a D up here, but it's with a 5th string root type of chord. They'll do just the 5th and 4th strings. And then when you strum the guitar, of course, you just try to hit those 2 notes. So you get your rock and roll pattern like that. And then, of course, you can put those little extensions on them that Chuck Berry popularized, where you go like that. So just to illustrate that, let me do an old 12-bar blues. We're going to be in the key of G, and so this will be my G chord down here. Using that 1-4-5 chord family that I talked about, we'll go like this. Betty told Dupree, I want a diamond ring. Betty told Dupree, I want a diamond ring. Dupree told Betty, I'd buy you most anything. Now we can do the same thing in G up here using the 5th string 1 chord, 5th string root 1 chord. He said, lie down, Betty, see what tomorrow brings. He said, lie down, Betty, see what tomorrow brings. So as the sun comes up, you'll get your diamond ring. So you can go back and forth between those 2 chord families and you're still in the key of G. There's an old blues turnaround in the key of E that sounds like this. And there's a whole little lead guitar style based on that you can use all up and down the fretboard. Let's first of all look at this in the key of E. You're doing this all on the 1st and 3rd strings. I'm not playing the 2nd string, and if I was playing with a flat pick, I would just mute it out with my by dragging my middle finger across it. So I'm walking down like this, and then ending up on the E chord. Now, if I wanted to make that movable, I could do it relating to this F chord, which is short for this full F chord. I could go same lick, a fret higher, and then it ends here on the 1st, and it's still all on the 1st and 3rd strings. So look, here it is in A, based on this F formation here. So you can walk up, you can start at the top and walk down, you can do a million little variations based on that. We're going to do a tune now that illustrates the use of these licks. It's an old blues tune called Corrine Corrina that's been done by everybody from, Bob Dylan to Bob Wills and a whole bunch of blues artists and country artists. it's going to be in the key of E, so you're going to be using E, A, and B, naturally the 1, 4, and 5 chords in the key of E. That means your E could be down here, or you could go way up to the 12th fret and play the E chords up there. And the A is here at the 5th fret. You realize that is short for that, okay? And then the B is at the 7th fret. Again, this is short for that. So here's Corrine, Corina. Corrine, Corina, where you been so long? Corrine, Corina, where you been so long? I ain't had no loving since you've been gone. I love Corina, I'll tell the world I do. I love Corina, tell the world I do. Just a little more loving, oh, let your heart be true. Corrine, Corina, where'd you stay last night? Corrine, Corina, where'd you sleep last night? Come home this morning, the sun was shining bright. Here's another tune where we can use the same 1st and 3rd string licks. This one's going to be an old blues tune called Careless Love, done up in a sort of a country rock kind of style, sort of an Eaglesy type of deal. And it's going to be in the key of C. So let's just get oriented here. The C is going to be up here at the 8th fret. And sure enough, F and G, the 4 and 5 chords, are the other 2 chords we need. So there's an F here. Of course, there's another one way up at the 13th fret here. And there's a G down here. So here's a little bit of Careless Love. Here's one more example of how to use those 1st and 3rd string licks, this time in an R&B type of context. You've heard Steve Cropper play this type of stuff on songs like Hold On, I'm Coming and Soul Man and all of those good things that the Blues Brothers brought back for a second generation. So this is going to be a kind of a R&B lick, a little instrumental, and it'll show you how you use the same type of licks in that context. Now we're in the key of G, so of course here's our G chord, and it's going to go to an F chord, which is down here, or I could travel all the way up here for the F chord, all the way up to the 13th fret, and then in the key of G, our 4 chord is C, so we're working with this C up here. So we're doing, instead of 1, 4, and 5, there's 1 and this F chord and 4. There's another real brief section of the tune that just hangs around on the G chord, a little vamp on G, so all the licks are right in here. Let's listen and see. lot of soloing is based on chords rather than scales, and there's lots of chord licks that you can play all up and down the fretboard in all different kinds of music. I'm going to show you some of those, and they're all going to revolve around three what I call chord fragments, little 3 and 4 string chords that are played on the top 3 or 4 strings of the guitar. There's an F shape, a D shape, and an A shape. The F shape is related to this F chord here. I'm just playing the top 4 strings. And of course you can move that all around, and the 1st or 6th strings is the root of that. So this is a G, and I play the F formation here because that's a G note. Here it's an A, and up at the 8th fret it's a C, and so on. That's one of the movable shapes. Another one is the D shape. Now you know this is your 1st position D chord. If you add this 4th string to it, then you've got a little 4-string major chord, and it can move around all over the place. And the last one is an A chord. If you take your A shape, you can make it movable just by taking the 1st string with you, like that. Some people will play it this way and just lose the 1st string or play it up high. So this chord that's an A shape, and there's another one. Now I'm going to divide these up into chord families. So you've got a 1, 4, and 5 chord right next to each other. Here's what I mean. If we're in the key of G, if I start with this F formation, that's my 1 chord. Automatically I know I've got a 4 chord right here, that A shape. So this is a 1, 4 kind of thing, and as you probably guessed by now, it's 1, 4 wherever you put it. If I put it here and this is A, that's my 4 chord, D. And if I put it here, it's C, that's my 4 chord, which is F. Now, you've got a 1 chord and a 4 chord, so you need a 5 chord. That's here, the D shape 1 fret lower. That's the 5 chord. So now we've got a whole chord family, 1, 4, and 5. And I'm sure you can hear that it's got that familiar 1, 4, 5 sound. That's when you start with an F-shaped 1 chord. I'm going to illustrate one way to use some of these chord fragments in a sort of 80s-ish sounding rock tune. Before I do, though, I want to show you 2 other chord families. If we're going to be in the key of C on the tune, so there's your 1 chord and your 4 chord and your 5. But you can also play a C down here. Here's your 1 chord, and there's the 4, the D shape, and there's the 5, the F shape. So I've got 1, 4, 5 there. If this is new to you, it's too much to take in one sitting, but you're going to have it in a little booklet that comes with this video, so you can sit and kind of study these things for a minute or 2 before you try to put them to use. We're talking about 3 chord families, one with an F-shaped 1 chord, one with a A-shaped 1 chord, that's the one we just did, and one, of course, with a D-shaped 1 chord. It's all C, it's all a key of C. So here's your 1 chord. The 4 is the F shape right above it, and the 5 is the A shape right below it. So as we do this next tune, which goes 1 to 5 to 4, you'll see me using these chord fragments, and I'll do it a couple times down here, a couple times up here, and a couple times up here. So I've used all 3 of those little chord families. Now, what do you do with those chords? Well, you can do a lot of things with them, but the first thing I'm going to do with them is really simple. You just play little arpeggios on the chords, which means you go up or down the strings of the chord. You don't have to do much, it's just like, you just go up and down, or you can go up and down. You can go, there's a million variations you can do, but those are called arpeggios when you run up and down the strings of a chord. And I'm going to do that right now in this 80s-ish rock tune. So what else can you do with these chord fragments besides play arpeggios and just sort of flail away at them like I did on some of those licks in the last tune? There's a lot of little licks that come from each one of the shapes, the F shape and the D shape and the A shape. Let's take a look at the individual licks, and then I'll put a bunch of them together in a song so you can see how they work. We're going to be in the key of D for the next tune, so let's just look at the key of D. First of all, if I was playing here, where there's a D chord, the F shape up at the 10th fret is a D chord. So what can I do to this F shape? Well, I can hammer on in certain places. I can hammer on to the first string, or pull off, or I can hammer on to the second string, or pull off, or just play it with the second string added on like that, or likewise the third string. These are all up in the last fret of the F shape. I can go, that's a suspended sound right there. I can get in a D sus when I do that. The other one on the second string, that was a sixth. So those are some little F licks. Another one on the F shape is you can take these top two strings and slide them up and come back down again. And you can mix all these up. I sometimes will slide up to the F shape on the third string from a couple frets back, like this. I'm stringing these all together now. And of course, you can add in those other F licks that we did before. Okay, so there's a bunch of F formation licks. Now let's look at the D shape. If I add this lick on the first string, this note on the first string, then I get a suspended sound, which is in rock and roll all over the place. I can also hammer onto the third string with my little finger. If I fret the fourth string back here, I can hammer onto it too. I can go. And all those hammer-on licks can turn into pull-off licks too, of course. Okay, so that's the D shape. Now let's look at this A shape, which you can do like this or like this. I'm going to do it like this. I've got this one here. Here's a suspended lick on the second string. And I can also hammer on to the third string or the fourth, or if I fret this, the fifth. So I'll get... You Hendrix fans will recognize some of those sounds. Here's another one on the top two strings. Also on the, I can get that same lick here on the second and third string. Okay, so, oh, here's one last one up here. So there's a whole range of, a whole bunch of licks that go with each formation. The tune we're going to put them all in is that old folk song, the Sloop John B., but it's going to be in a kind of a Memphis R&B rock and roll kind of a context. So it's going to be in the key of D, and I'll go around it enough times that I can play this D chord family here where I have 1, 4, and 5, or this D chord family up here, 1, 4, or 1, 4, and 5, and this D chord family up here, 1, 4, and 5, and you'll get to see some licks from all of those. Come on, the sloop John B., my grandfather and me, around Nassau town we did run, drinking all night, got into a fight. I feel so broken, I wanna go home. So I iced up John B. sails, see how the mainsail set. the first mate, he got drunk. He broke open people's trunk. Constable had to come and take him away. Sarah Johnstone, she let me go home. I feel so break up, I wanna go home. Here's a little road map that you can be aware of that helps you use those chord fragments and string them all together and get all over the fretboard with them. Here's what I'm talking about. I call it an FDA kind of a map. If you play an F chord down here in the first position, if you skip a fret, that is, skip the fourth fret, and then play the D shape up in these two frets, that's the next F chord. So this is F, and that's the next inversion of an F chord. From F to D. Now, of course, that's movable. If I'm playing this F, that's a G chord now, this F shape. Skip a fret and play the D shape up there, that's the next G chord. So let's go back to F. We've got an F, and we've got the next F. Then we skip another fret, that would be skipping the 7th fret, and we play the A shape up at the 8th, 9th, and 10th frets. That's the next F chord. So now we got 3 of them. F, skip a fret, D, skip a fret, A. And if we skip 2 frets, the 11th and 12th, we can start over again at the F, and it's a loop. You can keep on going until you run out of frets. So you've got F, F, next one, and so on. And of course, you can pick that loop up anywhere in the middle. Like if I start with this A chord, remember it's F, skip 1, D, skip 1, A, skip 2. So here's A, we skip 2 frets, play the F shape, that's the next A. Skip a fret, play the D shape, that's the next A. Skip a fret, play the A shape, that's the next A. So likewise, if I start with the D chord, I can go D, skip a fret, and play the A shape, skip 2 frets, and play the F shape, skip a fret, play the D shape. I can chase a chord all the way up and down the fretboard, and you might be wondering now, why would anybody want to do that? Well, if you hang out on one chord, if the song you're doing stays on one chord for a long time, that's a way you can get some variety into it. And we're going to play a little rock rave-up thing that starts on a G chord and gives you kind of a long build-up on G to give you an example of how this can work. We're going to do one more tune that gives you a chance to see that road map in action, using all 3 of those shapes, those chord fragments. This one's going to be just a little rock riff in the key of A. So it's going to use A and D, the 1 and the 4 chord. So you get a chance to play all the A's that you've got room for on your fretboard and all the D's. Here it goes. As you travel down the old fretboard highway, sooner or later you're going to come in contact with the blues box. I think there's a sign warning about it back there somewhere. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a very versatile scale, a scale for playing single note solos, and you can use it in blues, in rock, in country. Just countless famous solos are based on the blues box. So let's take a look at the blues box. If we wanted to play in the key of G, well, we're kind of relating it to this F shape, or if you like, to this full barred E shape, a G chord, in other words, that looks like this. I think 90% of the rock players or blues players, if you said the song was in G, they would do this with their left hand to get in position for this box. And it looks like this. If you walk up from the 6th string, everything comes back to the 3rd fret, by the way. So those are the notes in the blues box, and as you can see, it gets its name, G, from these strings here. So if I wanted an A blues box, I'd do the same thing up here. That means the 5th fret, where your A note is, that's kind of your home base. All the notes keep coming back to the 5th fret. If it was in C, everything would come back to the 8th fret, because that's where the C is. So it's, 3 frets up, 3 frets up, and then 2 frets up, 2 frets, 2 frets, and 3 frets. But besides playing those notes, you can bend some of them. You can bend the 3rd string. You can bend it up. You can bend it up and let it come down. You can have it already bent up before you play it. There's all kinds of possibilities. Same thing with the 2nd string and the 1st string, 3 frets up. Now, one of the beautiful things about the blues box is that as the chords are changing in your song, you just stay right there on the blues box that matches the key you're in. For instance, if we were in C, you just stay up here at the 8th fret and just wail on those notes, and you almost can't hit a wrong one as long as you stay in the box. Now, some will be righter than others, but in general, it's going to sound pretty good, and it's a good ad-libbing scale to work from, a good jamming type of scale. We're going to do a blues tune in the key of F to illustrate it, and that means you can play your F way down here at the 1st fret. There's the blues box in F. Or you could come way up here to the 13th fret, there's another F, and play the blues box up there. Now those notes, by the way, are just guidelines. You can play other notes besides those, but those are the 5 notes that make up the pentatonic scale, and they're, like I said, they're just guidelines, and you almost can't hit a wrong note if you stay within there. So let's try it. Here's an old blues, an old 12-bar blues called C.C. Rider in the key of F. C.C. Rider, see what you have done. C.C. Rider, see what you have done. You made me love you, while your other man had come. Now, of course, you have to really listen to a bunch of blues and steep yourself in the blues to really get the feel of how to use that blues box. And there's more than one blues box. If you get the old Fretboard Roadmaps book, you'll see there's 3, 4, or 5 of them. But sticking with this one of the beauties of it, as I mentioned before, is that it isn't just for the blues. You can use it in all kinds of music, especially rock and roll. We're going to do a rock little riff in E, sort of a fast rock thing, and it's going to go through these chords, E and then G and A and B, and I'm just going to stay up here on the 12th fret E blues box through the whole thing and wail away on those same notes, and miraculously enough, it's going to fit with all those chords. So here's a typical use of the blues box in a rock and roll context. Okay, now you've used a blues box to play the blues, and you've used it to play rock and roll. You can also use the blues box to play music that's pretty far away from from the blues. You can do ballads and country music, all kinds of stuff. But when you're starting to do a pretty ballad or a song that's definitely in a major key that isn't blues inflected, you usually can't do the blues box directly. You have to fudge it a little bit. For instance, in the next tune that I do in the key of D, it's kind of a pretty ballad that goes, going where the chilly winds won't blow. So if I come up here and play, it obviously doesn't fit the feeling of the tune. Now, I was in the key of D there. So if instead of playing the D blues scale, I move down 3 frets and play the blues scale there, then miraculously enough, those 5 notes and the same blues licks that you used before are going to work in this major sounding, pretty sounding kind of a tune. Because you wind up with a major pentatonic scale instead of a blues pentatonic scale. But without getting into the mechanics of it, the main thing to remember is you go, if the blues scale doesn't seem to fit the tune well, you go 3 frets down from the actual key, and it probably will. Now some things will change. For instance, in the key of D, those are my tonic notes, those are my D notes. But if I go 3 frets down, the 3rd string here is my D note, so a lot of licks are going to end on that note or revolve around it. But I can use the same blues kind of licks. Let's try it. This is Chilly Winds in the key of D, and it's going through a whole bunch of fancy chords, major 7ths and minor 11ths, but I'm just going to stay right here at what would normally be called the B blues box. For those of you who like to know more about music theory, B is the relative minor to the key of D, and that's one of the reasons why this works. But here's Chilly Winds in the key of D. Going where the climate suits my clothes, going where the climate suits my clothes, going where the climate suits my clothes, Lord, Lord, I ain't gonna be treated this way. I promised you that you could use the blues box in country music too. So let's do that now. I'm going to play an old country folk tune called the 9-Pound Hammer. There were all kinds of hammer songs written, weren't there? But this is the 9-Pound Hammer, and it's in the key of E, just using the usual 3 chords in the key of E, which are E, A, and B. Now, to play the blues in E, of course, you'd be up here at the 12th fret. But we're doing our substitute blues scale, going down 3 frets from there, which puts us right here in what you would normally call the C-sharp blues scale. So we're going to do that. Remember, the 3rd string is our tonic note. So here comes the 9-Pound Hammer. As the chords change, I'm just going to stay right here at the 9th fret and do my 9th fret blues box. 9-Pound Hammer. The 9-Pound Hammer gets a little too heavy for my size, buddy, for my size. Roll on, buddy, pull your load of coal. Tell me how can I pull when the wheel won't go? Well, by now you may be wondering, are there any other wonderful single note scales as good as the blues box that I can use for jamming with? And of course the answer is yep, there's this sliding pentatonic scale, the sliding scale that one of the signs back there on the fretboard highway warns you about. The sliding scale is a pentatonic scale. That means 5 notes, just like the blues box gives you 5 notes, but they're different notes and they have a more major kind of a sound, and they work for almost any kind of music. And you'll get a couple of samples, but let's start with, there's one of them that starts with a 6th string. So this is a 6-string root sliding scale. I'm going to start it here, so as you know, it's a G scale. Okay, and it's you hit the 2nd note here and then slide up 2 frets, hence the name. This is a scale that in general goes up this way instead of just staying here and going this way. So, okay, so you slide up to there, then you catch this one back here. Now we have, hey, do you recognize those 5 notes? Yeah, they sound familiar to me too. And those are the notes that you need for the scale, but you're going to take it up another notch here. So we have, okay, I'm going to end before hitting that note up there. And that's a G pentatonic scale. So similar to the blues scale, while chords are changing behind you and the band is playing all these chords, you can often just stay on the keynote scale. Like I'm staying on the G scale. In the next tune we're playing, it has a whole bunch of chords, but I'm staying on the G sliding scale throughout. I'm going to do a bunch of string bending like I did in the blues box. The notes that I'm bending are the sliding ones, like the 2nd to the 3rd note slide, so sometimes I'll bend that. And here's another sliding note, so I'll bend that. There's another sliding one, so I bend that. In other words, those 2nd to 3rd notes are the ones that I'm bending. And it gives you kind of a bluesy sound, yet it fits in a non-blues type of tune. The one we're going to do is an old Celtic folk song called Ora Lee, which is pretty much what Love Me Tender is based on. And this is a kind of a Beatlesy ballad arrangement of it, something that you definitely could not use even though it's in the key of G, not use the G blues box on. But we can use this G sliding scale. So here's Ora Lee in the key of G. You're going to float right over the chord changes, so you don't need to know what they are. But trust me, there's a bunch of them. There's another sliding scale that starts on the 5th string, has a 5th string root. And that means if we wanted to play a C sliding scale, we would start right here at the 5th, where the 5th string is a C. And it's almost exactly like, it's very similar to the 6th string one, but as you know, when you tune a guitar, when you jump down to the 4th fret to tune the 2nd string, that makes things change a little bit. So let's take a look at the C sliding scale, or the 5th string root one. It starts here and slides up again on like that. And then, this is written out, of course, in your booklet, but here it is. And once again, I'm going to bend the notes that are the sliding notes, the ones that go from the 2nd to the 3rd note in the scale. Like, So once you've practiced the scale a little bit, look at how it fits into a tune that we've gone through before, this song called Careless Love, in the key of C. So sure enough, we're going to be using this particular scale, Careless Love. Love, oh love, oh careless love. Love, oh love, oh careless love. Love, oh love, oh careless love. See what love has done to me. Now you can also change scales using the sliding scale with the chord changes of a tune. Unlike the blues box, where you stay on in the same position throughout the tune, well, we just did that on the last couple tunes, but now I'm going to show you an example of a tune where you go with the chord changes. This is going to be in the key of E. So, and it's a blues, so it's just the usual 3 chords in a blues, E, A, and B. And we're going to use all 3 scales, the E sliding scale and the A and the B. Let's look at where they are. The E, is a 6-string root, but we did a G1, and so we're going to take it all the way down here to the first open E string. That means we're going to use this scale here. Go all the way down to the open string. When I go to change to the A chord, I'll do the 5th string root one we did before. It feels a little different because you're starting on an open string, but it's the same. And then the B is the same as the A, only 2 frets higher, and so on. So why do this? Well, if a song stays on one chord for any length of time, it starts to be easier to find notes that fit in the actual scale that goes with that chord. So that's what happens in this old blues tune called Staggerly. It's in the key of key of E, but it switches to A, and it stays there for several bars, and when it switches to B, it stays there for several bars. So we're going to do a lot of scale switching as we do this, but it's all the sliding scale, an E1 and an A1 and a B1. Here's Staggerly. Staggerly was a bad man, everybody knows. Paid $1,000 just for a suit of clothes. He's a bad man. Who was Staggerly? Here's yet another version of Staggerly, this one in the key of G, and with a rockier kind of a feel. And I'm going to use it to demonstrate one other use of the sliding scales. You can get these real funky sounding double note licks using the sliding scale. Here's how it's done. In the G sliding scale, when I get to the note that you bend, I hold the 5th string under it, and then I can go. When I get up here to this bent note, I hold the 3rd string under it. And I keep holding it when I play the next lick, and then here's the next bent note in the scale, so I can hold the 1st string under it. These are real country sounding licks. They also can be real bluesy sounding. similar licks to play with the 5th string root sliding scale. Here's the first bent note in a C scale, so I'm going to hold the 4th string under it. I'm trying to bend the 5th string, but not the 4th. Here's the next note that you bend in the C sliding scale. Here I have to hold the 2nd string 1 fret higher. So those are double note licks that work with the sliding scale. If they remind you of Honky Tonk Women from the Rolling Stones, that's pretty much what that sound came from. It's in Southern rock, it's in country music, it's in all kinds of stuff. I'm changing with the chord changes of Staggerly, so there'll be G licks and C licks and D licks, and they're all coming from the sliding scales that go with those chords. Here it is. Staggerly shot Billy the Lions. When you think of that, shot him down in cold blood over a Stetson hat. He's a bad man, that cruel Staggerly. One thing we haven't talked about yet is major scales. Major scales are real useful as a soloing device, and that's because most of the melodies to popular songs are based on major scales, so you can use them to play licks, you can use them to play melodies, and they come in real handy. And I like to organize my thinking about major scales along these lines. I have 3 or 4 of them that I play, and they all correspond with those good old chord fragments that you learned about back the road a ways. For instance, if I play this F-shaped chord, of course this is a G chord here, but it's the F formation, I've got a major scale that I do that relates to that shape. Of course, we all know what a major scale sounds like because Julie Andrews taught us it in that song about the female deer. But besides just playing the scale to get used to it until it's second nature, you can do these little exercises like this one here. And get real limber with it. I used to do those for warm-up exercises. They make good warm-up exercises. Also, you can hunt around for melodies that you already know but have never played on the guitar. Hunt around for them, like we did Aura Lee a few tunes back there. And it's in there. And just about all the melodies that you've heard in this lesson, you can find if you want them in the major scale. Except for the real bluesy ones, where you'll get some notes that aren't included in the major scale. Now, the next G chord is this D-shaped one, and there's a major scale that I associate with this position. Sometimes instead of playing the D like this, I do that. And there's the D at the bottom. Once again, you can hunt for the songs that you know. You can do that with nursery rhymes and with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, as well as you can with pop tunes. And just the idea is to have a song that's clearly up here, but that you never played down here. That's one of the ultimate goals in music anyway, isn't it? That if you can hear it up here, you're supposed to be able to play it down here on your axe. So major scales is just one more way of getting close to that. Now the next one I do is the one that's, okay, we did this G and this G. Now let's go with this one, this A position. So there's another one right there. We're giving Aurelia a workout. But any tune that you do that with is going to help develop your ear and get you used to the major scale. Like any of these scale ideas or chord-based ideas, you have to practice them a whole bunch before you can really use them very well in a tune. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? So we're going to do sort of an R&B ballad type of tune in which major scales kind of sound nice. It's a G major 7th is the main chord of the tune. Now, similar to what we did with the blues scale and the sliding scale, there's some chord changes here, but we're just going to keep on the G major scale all through it. It's going to go from a G to an A minor to a D9 or some kind of D7 chord. But we're just going to sail right over that, playing the G major scale. And I'll go around the tune enough times that I can play this major scale and this one up here. And you'll get a glimpse of how it looks in all three positions. We've talked about a whole bunch of different approaches to playing chords and scales and licks all over the fretboard. Hopefully, once you assimilate this stuff, you've got a lot of choices. Given a situation where somebody's playing a tune and you want to play along and improvise, hopefully you have a lot of choices. You might play the blues scale. You might play the blues scale down 3 frets if it isn't a real bluesy tune, or a major scale, or one of those sliding scales, or those chord-oriented licks. Or remember back towards the beginning, that little series of licks on the 1st and 3rd strings. You've learned something about chord families and a little bit of music theory along the way. And any one of those subjects, you could take a couple of weeks and just practice them nonstop to really make them your own. A lot of people have made a whole life's career out of playing out of the blues boxes. And that sliding scale you can get an amazing amount of mileage out of that. It works in a lot of different situations. So any one of these you can sit with for hours and hours and really work on it and incorporate it into your playing. There's other stuff in the Fretboard Roadmaps book that I didn't get into in this lesson. There's a lot of theory about the way chords move and how chords are constructed and stuff like that. So that might be a good thing to look at. Also, I've written a bunch of books for Hal Leonard that get into specific styles, you know, electric blues, country, rock and roll, and just good old-fashioned acoustic and electric blues. Any one of those is good to look at too, but sit with this information for a while. It's way too much for one sitting. It's the kind of stuff you need to take apart and use bit by bit, but have some fun with it.